AI adoption among U.S. firms climbed from 3.7% in 2023 to just 9.7% by August 2025, fewer than 1 in 10 companies running AI in production. ISG's 2025 enterprise study found only 31% of AI use cases reached full production. And McKinsey reports 42% of companies abandoned or halted an AI initiative in 2025, up from 17% the year before. The gap between AI investment and AI impact is widening, and most sales leaders are quietly avoiding the truths that explain why. Today, we walk through the ones that matter most. Welcome to Some Goodness, where we engage seasoned business leaders and experts to share practical guidance and tips to help new and future leaders maximize their impact. My guest today is Jack Siney, co-founder of FrontRace and a serial founder whose previous company, GovSpend, was acquired in 2020 after 2 decades serving the public sector. Jack's new white paper, The 15 AI Truths Every Sales Leaders Will Face in 2026, argues that most companies are experimenting with AI and very few are executing with precision. We're going to find out why. Well, Jack, welcome to the show.
Hi, Richard. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
I'm excited to dive in today to talk about AI. You bring a unique perspective on that in that you recently wrote a white paper about 15 truths
Yeah.
that all sales leaders are avoiding. Did I get the title right?
Yeah. Some things we've seen here the last 12 months or so that are a little counterintuitive that will come to bear for folks that are willing to kind of confront some of the things that are happening. So share those from just our real world experiences.
I love it. Well, AI is everywhere, right? It's
Amen.
upon us.
Everywhere, everywhere.
And all the leaders I talk to are always just kind of looking for, is there something I'm missing?
Yeah.
What are you finding, right? And so I thought this would be, certainly a relevant
Sure.
discussion for us to have today. Obviously, we can't get through all of your 15 truths, but what I thought, if you don't mind, is if I could just kind of pick some out that stood out to
Sure.
me and we
Sure.
kind of talk about those.
Definitely. That'd be great.
Well, let's just kind of start at the highest level in terms of, I like one of the opening statements you made that investment is outpacing insight.
Yeah.
And so
Amen.
that was kind of provocative to me. And so tell me about what kind of led to
Sure.
that observation.
Yeah, yeah. I love to claim, love to claim that, but really, it's just a summary of the data for, particularly last year. Last calendar year, there was a notable and amazing set of investments. This year, we'll probably outpace that. But all the studies that were done for last year's investments, I think the number was around for U.S. companies about $650 million put into AI initiatives, AI pilots, and the almost shocking outcome of each one of the studies from really notable organizations, McKinsey and kind of other think tanks of, hey, the actual deployment and implementation of those was pretty small at the end of the day. They'd go through these pilots, they'd go through these major initiatives, and very few companies, I think the number is under 10% of those initiatives actually got rolled out across the company. And so that's super eye-opening. That's a lot of
Yes.
money. I think the contrast to that is if you're on social media, if you're on LinkedIn or X or any of the platforms, you'd swear every company is fully AI enabled, firing their entire staff, making it all AI. And so the real world at a ground level is pretty significantly different than what's promulgated across the social media platforms right now. So
Yeah, and that number really stood out to me as well, because if you go to, any investor and you say, "Hey, I got this big idea and, we have a likelihood of success of 10%."
yeah,
Nobody's gonna invest in that. But here we
yeah,
are pouring money into AI investment, knowing that, that is the trend, or maybe many people don't know that that is the trend, but there is
yeah,
a lot of failure. There's a lot of adoption out there. And so I'm excited to kind of learn some insights from
sure,
you in terms how can we get things right, right? How can we look at things from a different perspective? And starting at the top, one of the things I think it was, early in your white paper, you were talking about AI is optimizing the wrong metrics.
yeah,
So tell me what you mean by that. Dig into
sure.
that a little.
I love real quickly. I love when you started the show. It's so funny. AI literally is everywhere. Whatever furniture companies, every company in the world has to put AI on their website. So it's so funny how
Yes.
it's so. It just reminds me when the internet showed up and everyone had to be .com this, and so it is. It's just a real
Yes.
thing. But we sometimes forget our past, and I would just share the following are all facts about how we got to where we are today, which is we started this tech stack on the commercial side about 40 years ago. So in the mid 1980s. CRMs arrived on the scene. Salesforce.com showed up around 2000. And we started with the CRM and then pipeline management. and then sales enablement stuff, and then RevOps, and now conversation intelligence. And most companies have anywhere from 6 to 12 major technology platforms that they're using on the commercial side. It's an
Right.
enormous amount of data. So you're like, of course, it's going to make us better. It's going to make us operationally more efficient or proficient. And the reality is, if you put it in, you can go Google it or ChatGPT or Perplexity or whatever you love, Claude. We're no better today. 4 decades in, hundreds of millions, if not trillions of dollars invested in all of these sales platforms, this tech stack we now have at the commercial side. We're no better today on two variables. Companies hitting forecasts, right? Public companies still miss at, if you look at the stats, more we're worse at forecasting, shockingly, with all the tools we have today, a lot more data, but worse at hitting forecasts and hitting our goals. And that's just public companies. Forget private companies. Some of it's we don't even get to see. And so if that seems too pithy for some folks, but let's do this, let's personalize it. Your sales team, anyone has a sales team, if you have a sales team of 10 folks or 20 folks, it's still the 80-20 rule. 20% of your people are creating 80% of the revenue almost across the board. And we're no better at sharing what are those 20% of the people doing? What are our top people doing? How do we
Mm.
share that, replicate it, have our middle tier people do it? We are no better at that statistically today than we were 40 years ago. And so both of those real world things are very shocking. If you again, you think about all the technologies and all the systems and all the time we spend doing implementations, and we have a lot more data, a lot more metrics, many more dashboards, but literally we're no better measuring the same set of stats per your question of like, how many calls and how many emails and what's our pipeline looks like. Those are not the metrics, clearly 40 years in, that drive and have a direct correlation to success. They're just not. And no one can say differently. And love all those systems. Love Salesforce, HubSpot, Gong. They're all great, but they're not helping
Sure.
us delivering the results they said they would.
So are there, when we look at investing in AI tools, are there just a short handful of critical metrics that we need to make sure that we do keep our eye on to, start to right that ship and see if we
Oh,
can get that productivity or efficiency gain?
sure. That's a great question. The amazing part to me about AI. So I'm not a technologist. So I believe in the tech world, AI is doing amazingly, just amazing things in efficiency, and can it code and create things that took a set of programmers a long time to do? Yes. So my perspective is all on the commercial business side. And I would just say, as
Mm.
we sit here and start of Q2 2026, we're a long way from AI revolutionizing things in a real world context on the business side for a variety of reasons. And so, one, those, whatever platform you love, no, judgment to none of them, I always say they're about 80% correct, right? If you saw Deloitte, huge consulting firm, sent out a report where they relied on AI, it made up references, it made up a bunch of things. They had to refund money to their clients, super embarrassing. So there's still some issues with the core underlying technology. But then, more to your point of what is it? What should we be measuring? And the magic for me in the AI world, it's going to take us a little while to get there, is we can start to measure things we couldn't historically. And so we believe that's what AI is going to deliver. We believe 40 decades, we've been measuring the wrong, it's clear we've been measuring the wrong things, right? So, period. And then our basic core assumption in FrontRace is the following. We all know this. You have two reps, they have the same metrics, the same number of calls, same outreach, same pipeline, and
Mhm.
one is outperforming the other one by 3x. We all have this on our sales team. If you have more than 5 people, you have this. Some it looks the same, pipeline's the same, outreach is the same, everything looks the same. One is outperforming, and then when the CEO or the board shows up and asks the head of sales, "Why is that happening?" The head of sales simply makes something up. Well, Susan, who's better, is just better at closing. She's a better communicator. She had a better pipeline. We make something up that is very, very, very subjective. And so we believe that the difference between these two people are 20 little things. It's
Mhm.
20 small things that historically have been very, very hard to measure. It's not the big things. Everyone knows the pricing. Everyone knows the FAQs. Everyone knows how to do the demo. That is not it. What it is at the end of the day, it's the one who has 3x does things in a certain order, responds in a certain way, spaces their interactions out in a certain way. It's almost counterintuitive things. And then when you ask that person to train the rest of the team, it's like Michael Jordan trying to teach basketball. They just know they do it. They almost can't train the rest of the team because it's so instinctual about how they operate. And so That is what we believe AI will deliver for companies at the end of the day, not trying to automate what you've done in the past. It's insight into those 20 things. And what are those for your company? Because they're really different for every company. They're not the same. And
Right.
all these systems make it sound like the same. They're all going to be different. They're all going to have little nuances for every company based on your product, your vertical, your customer.
I totally agree. And we see the Michael Jordans or the Susans, the rock stars, right? And
Yeah.
we call those unconscious competence,
Amen.
right?
Yep. That's
They just do what they do intuitively. But if you ask them, what leads to your success, it's hard for them to articulate. They're
amen.
just like, I just make it happen, right?
That is sales always like, can you do a training for everybody else? We ask them to stand in front of the group, do a
That's
training.
right.
It ends horrible because no one can repeat it. It sounds so counterintuitive. And so we've been doing that for decades, expecting something different. Definition of insanity, right? We keep doing the same thing, being like, why isn't this working?
Right. And so, getting to some of those, let's just call them non-documented best practices
Yeah.
and feeding that into AI that's the hard part, right?
Amen.
Because that's the missing, magic and secret sauce
Yep.
and secrets to success. And that's not documented in your CRM system or your CSM system, right?
It's not. Could I have one thing? Like everybody's doing this. Anybody worth their salt. If you're pay grade, you're in the sales leader. Everyone does this, and we wonder why it fails. We all document our process.
Hmm.
Boxes, right? We got 22 boxes. Some of them have the diamond where you got a yes, no. Hey, you
Right.
hire a new person, you go, here's our process. It's 27 steps. We outreach and we send an email and then we do a call and then we have a demo and FAQs and we all have a document. Then do they do it? No. And then we do this. And da, da, da. The reality is that standard process, which we think is kind of the bell curve. This is what we normally do. Every client's different, number one. And so that's a problem because every client is different size and has a different budget, has a different problem. And so it doesn't acclimate very well. And then secondly, all the sales reps are different. Susie has a different skill set than Bob, than Mike. And some people are better at prospecting, some are better at demoing, some are better at pricing negotiation. So we have a standard thing. We hire somebody and go, this is how we do it. Meanwhile, every client's different and that person's different. And we wonder why isn't this working so well? And you're like, we're at an age we AI will enable us to customize all of it. Customize how the product is, how Susan works, how Bob works, how Mike works, how we do
Yeah.
pricing. That's the magic of AI. Instead of jamming the old school, what we say, everyone's the same. It's going to do that in education, by the way, as well. But in the sales world, we now can do things that are custom and not have to worry about what the dashboard says or what the common metrics are. And that's going to be the wow factor we believe over the next 5 or 6 years is we're able to deeply customize how we outreach per person, per prospect, and have much better results at the end of the day.
Well, and that's hard, right? It's not a matter of just, picking your Perplexity or your Claude and say, "Hey, we're
Super
gonna,
hard.
use Claude Cowork and throw it at this workflow." That takes real work to figure out the underlying process that's not documented and what are those
Amen.
components, then educate your agent of choice,
Yep.
right? And what's really surprising to me is, it's like we've forgotten your core project management, disciplines of measuring baseline and then measuring improvement or lack thereof, and then making adjustments based on the success or the
Yeah.
failures, right? All of that it reminds me, you mentioned the dot-com era. It's like when the dot-com era came about, is like suddenly profitability doesn't matter anymore. And some of those valuation metrics, we don't care. Just throw money at it if you're a dot-com because, we've got to get in the game,
Well,
right?
listen,
And
that
so it's
we're doing that today.
exactly.
Companies are 100%. Who cares? Every company, think the most non-tech thing in the world has AI on their website. We deal with hundreds of companies. You'd sell dog products. You could sell again furniture. You'd sell cooking recipes. All of it has AI. You have to say AI. You're in AI. Invest in AI. You're like, goodness
You
gracious!
don't, you're behind, right?
It's
You're not
so
relevant
bad.
anymore. Yeah.
It's so bad. So in
Yeah.
the real world, many folks have no idea what they should be doing, how it works, and that's a conundrum. Folks don't want to do some of the kind of old school grunt work to get ready for AI, and so we've been banging the drum, sometimes alone, silently in the market. We believe there's some core things company needs to do to get ready, so you can take advantage of it. And again, there's no hurry. I know everyone. We're we're still in the AOL dial-up stage. If those are old enough to
Yeah.
remember the internet, we're still at AOL fax machine. Every
2400 baud modem.
Totally everything we're doing today in the AI world is going to look childish 5 years from now. Literally,
Yeah.
And we're in such a rush to get something, and you're like, gosh, can we do some foundational things that are going to make you more successful in the long term? Some companies don't love that honest feedback.
Well, as companies and specifically leaders, business leaders, revenue leaders look to get this right, they have to look at something, right? And I
Yeah,
find, and I think you talked about it in your article or your white paper a little bit in terms of, we tend to be drowning in analytics, and the last thing they want is more dashboards to look at,
yeah,
right? They
amen.
want guidance, they want direction. So tell me about a little bit about your perspective on what that looks like,
Sure.
as they
Yeah.
shepherd and sponsor AI initiatives like this.
Yep. The key word, like everyone hears, signals. We want signals. Like that's the VC. Is your system give signals? And because the root of that is the following. We all know this. We could all look if you had 10 sales managers in a room, bring up a Salesforce dashboard that has standard metrics of whatever calls and pipelines and outreach and ROI and marketing leads and all those things, SQLs, and we'd all look the same thing. 10, it's like doing a tax return. You'd get 9 opinions about what the best next step is, right? You could have 10 people look at the same data and come up with 8 different, oh, we should then go heavy on marketing. We should retrain the sales team. We should go high end deals. We should go SMB. We should, you know, and so that's one of the conundrums that you could have a variety of people look at the same data. And so the world now in analytics is what are the signals? What's the data say? And so it reminds me that the best analogy is probably sports movie, that Moneyball movie about
Mm,
baseball, which some of the folks came in Oakland A's, and
okay.
those don't know the story, and they were really using analytics because baseball was highly reliant upon a manager's gut feel and his feel of the game and what he thought was best. And the Oakland A's showed up, a couple of stats people, and like, "No, forget all that. Here's what the analytics say is the best move for your team." By the way, typically a lower budget, that's what everyone's searching for. Like, what do the analytics say? How can we do it in a cheaper way, a more cost efficient way? And so that's what we're trying to deliver for businesses. And so the foundation of that to get to how do you get the signals? So let me just piece some of this together. We've been kind of running around a little bit, but there's two main things for companies to do. One is you got to get your data together, consolidated, and cleaned up. Now that sounds super unsexy. So hey, we want to get AI, but if you take AI, it's a garbage in, garbage out. If you take AI and you put it on a crappy data set, AI is already going to have some hallucinations to it. But if the data is not right, you're going to come up with bad conclusions and you're going to get fired. You're like, oh, Claude told me to fire all our SDRs and go agents. And then 6 months later, you wonder why you're out of a job. So the first thing is, how do we get your data in one spot, all of it? Because most companies, the answers are in their data. Larry Ellison said it a couple of weeks ago. All the open AI sources, LLMs, they're all using open data. Whatever, if you love Gronk or you love ChatGPT or Claude, doesn't matter. They're all pulling from the same open data. The magic is in your data, your company's data. You already know what works, what does. You just haven't measured it right. And so, how do we get the data together and normalize it? So to make sure an apple in system one is an apple in system two is an apple in system three, because that's
Yeah.
not true in most systems. So that's the first part. And so get your data together, normalize it. And then secondly, we hinted upon it earlier, is what's the actual process flow your team is using? Not the one that's in your manual, not the one that's in your sales manual or your client service manual. What are your people actually doing? And we would highly suggest you're not going to be able to do that based upon your feelings or by interviews. What's the data say they're doing? No system documents, oh, Bob, after the University of Michigan won the national championship in basketball, sent a text to one of his prospects that went to the University of Michigan and said, congratulations, Michigan won the national championship. He's creating relationship. He's doing some things
Yeah.
to build. So none of that's really documented. So the ability to connect your systems and start to see what are your people actually doing. And so those two
Right.
foundational steps drive people nuts. You want me to get my data together and standardize it, and you want me to look foundationally what my sales reps are actually doing or what my client service reps are doing. Both of those in 10 years ago would have been like, those are multi-year efforts, by the way.
Right.
But again, with technology and with AI, they are not. They're no longer, they don't, if you're listening to this, the eyes roll back in your head. Don't do that. Like they're both very doable. That's what FrontRace starts to do. It gives you the foundational level of data and process. So now we can start to plug in some AI tools to automate, and you're based upon the right foundational elements. Super hard, easy to say, hard to have the patience and the desire to get everything cleaned up before you throw some tools at it to try to make it better.
I don't know who said it first, but Somebody said, good, clean, reliable, real-time data is going to be the new moat,
Amen.
right?
Yep.
And
100%.
you and other companies out there figuring that out, with the advances of technology today. To your point, no longer is it locked up in your Access database. It's going to take months and months and months to try to create custom APIs to get at it. Right? You
Yeah.
can solve this problem, imminently now, and more easily and cost effective.
So with that, when you have that, the magic is in the micro detail of all that. That's where the answers are. Again, it's 20 little things. And so historically with the data sets we had, the tools, we couldn't measure that. So I'll use one example. In Salesforce, if you've used Salesforce for years, I love Salesforce. If somebody created an opportunity in Salesforce 6 months ago for X, Bob put in an opportunity X. Then it's over the course of 6 months, it's going up, it's going down, people involved, number of licenses, up and down. Now we're 6 months out, it closes for whatever, 70% of that or 120% of that. If you were trying to do a postmortem, you can't go back and see how that deal changed and why it changed. There's no analytic capability. And that's nothing against Salesforce. No tool's been able to do that. It's over time. Why did it change? What changed? And what are the variables? We haven't had the micro analytics, and that's what AI starts to do. That's just one example of like, hey, when the deal changes, why did it change? What changed? Who were the players involved when it changed? Did the sales rep change it? Did the client's people change? Did the budget change? And so knowing that when it closes, now we can get much smarter for the next one. And so AI is able to connect all those little pieces. It's not someone's opinion. Think about this, another real world example. Today, we've relied on people to create their own pipeline and manage it. We're counting on the sales rep, who's very biased, by the way, to manage their own pipeline, put in the probability it's going to close, the amount it's going to close, and when it's going to close. Are you kidding me? Like, we've all had this experience. We had a great demo. They're definitely buying. Then they don't call them back for 4 months and they go, they're still going to buy. And you're like, no, they're not buying. This is not a game.
Right.
They're not buying. And so we've relied on sales reps or a human being to, again, put them when it's going to close, how much it's going to close, and what date. It's no. We have so much more analytical ability now to let the software, a la a baseball movie, to say when, how much, and the likelihood it's going to close. And so we now, when we get the micro data, we can share that and start to put real numbers to it, which will dramatically improve how companies operate and have a great idea what's going to close, when it's going to close, and for how much.
That's great. A great perspective. And I love the Moneyball example because AI, really affords us the ability to look at things differently, right?
Amen.
Like in
Yep.
Moneyball, the big shift was we're no longer buying players, we're
Right.
buying runs,
Amen.
right? And to buy runs, and to get runs, you need to get on base, right? And so, kind of looking at things from a fresh lens. And I think that's what AI allows us to do with this new technology and the power that it has. One thing I wanted to ask you though, you mentioned kind of the downsides of human judgment, but part of our perspective is, you still do need human expertise
We
and
do. Yeah.
wisdom paired with AI to make it work right. Where does the human side of things come in that is required and that does,
Sure.
create
Sure.
value?
I want to go back to one thing you mentioned in the Moneyball movie, which was, hey, let's just say in baseball, they used to look at average, right? They'd say average and home runs and RBIs. And you'd be like, and so somebody would value one of those or the other ones. But they figured out, like you said, it's runs. And no one cares about the average. The average doesn't matter. It's runs. We're trying to score runs, right? And so the same thing in sales, we're focused on pipeline or calls or outreach or those. What we really care about is close deals. Like,
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
cares how it gets closed? Do they close it? And so we are able to then figure out, what does Bob do special that helps Bob close? And then what does Susan do to help her close? And what does Mike do? And leverage that, because it's about closing deals, not having them do it the way the company says they should do it. It's how do they get their deal closed? And so
End result.
measuring what they do, the gap between when they do it, how do they deliver stuff? Again, all that help Mary be her best, Mike be his best, Bob be his best. That's what we're driving to. Amazing. So with that, that connects to your question, which is everybody's good, really good at parts of the system. Very few people are great at all of it. Hey, I'm great at outreaching, building my pipeline, doing the demo, did pricing. It's hard. And so trying to find people leverage what they're good at, maximizing that is amazing because companies are going to need that. And then I would just say at 100,000 foot level, the higher dollar value of what you're selling, the more secure your job is. If you've ever had a problem with Google, Facebook, if you had a problem with your page, or an issue, you can't reach anybody. So imagine 2 years from now, hey, I bought this piece of software for 120 grand from an agent. They turned the agent off, so I have no one to call, and there's no phone number for the company. Like, no one wants to do that. The higher, more money you spend, there's going to be questions. There's going to be support. There's stuff's going to come up. Nothing's perfect. And so if you're selling a $10 commodity, are you in AI peril? Maybe. TBD.
Right.
None of us really know what 2030 looks like. I would never claim to say if somebody gets on the phone and tells you they're an AI expert knows, I'd hang up. No one really knows what 2030 is going to look like. But I can, with great adamacy, say the more money a client's spending, the safer your job is, because they want to hear about it. They can do all, we hear all the stats. They're going to 80% research before they ever talk to you, and they know about your company, and great. But ultimately, somebody's going to make a decision to spend 70 grand, 80 grand, 120 grand, 250 grand, $1 million over 5 years, $5 million. People want somebody to talk to who supports me when I have a question, what's happening. And so I coach our team and folks I'm a mentor to, and folks when I do podcasts and speaking, the more expensive your item is, the safer your job is, because half of it can be automated, 70% can be automated. But when they got to make rubber hits the road, got to make a decision, they want someone to talk to. And more importantly, once they buy, who can they talk to about when there's a glitch? There's always a glitch. And so that would be my perspective on the human process. I think the sales folks are in some of the safest ground, particularly if it's of any complexity or any significant dollar amount.
Really good. I was just looking at the time, and unfortunately, we are out of time for today. We're going to have you back. I love geeking out on technology, AI,
Appreciate it.
the
Yeah.
intersection of AI and people, all of that good stuff. So thanks for sharing your insights and experience today. We always like to end the show with some extra goodness. And so outside of AI and kind of your tech world, what's brought you a little goodness lately?
Just moved to the Texas area, spent my whole life on the coast. Moved to Texas, and the reason I'm in Texas, my wife said, we're going to Texas. I'm like, oh my goodness. But our daughter just had our baby and a grandchild, and we had the opportunity to babysit him. My wife does. And so he's here 3 to 5 days a week. And so that is a life changer. It's way better to be a grandparent than a parent. You kind of get to see the best of, and at the end of the day, return them. And so been a great, wonderful beacon of light and happiness in our house, unquestionably. He's here today. You might hear him screaming at some point. So.
Oh, that's so great.
No doubt.
That's so great. That is some goodness right there. So thanks for sharing, and thanks again for being here.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it. God bless.
Some Goodness is a creation of Revenue Innovations. Visit us at revenueinnovations.com and subscribe to our newsletter.